Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaskar. Our discussion in next two lectures is centered on one of the very important legislation, that is the Indian Advocate Act of 1961. This is the legislation which is really important and interesting for those who are aspiring to be or anyone who is practicing in the legal profession. From the legal education to enrollment to practice and to abiding the professional conduct, the Indian Advocate Act 1961 is a very, very important act. So this act is a cornerstone of a legal profession in India. Now, let us begin with the outline of this act. So the topic which we are going to cover in part 1 of the Indian Advocate Act of 1961 is introduction, then we'll see the historical background of the act, and then we'll see the Advocate Act 1961, what are the key definitions, what are the structure of the Indian Advocate Act. Then we'll see the composition of the Bar Council of India, the State Bar Council of India. Then we'll see the different discipline committees which are constituted to take care of if there is any professional misconduct, and then we'll also discuss some landmark judgment on the Indian Advocate Act 1961. Let us begin. Now, the legal profession is considered a novel profession which is based on the trust between the advocate and his client. So the legal profession play a very, very important role in the administration of justice, and it is not possible for any state to administer justice effectively without a well-organized legal profession. So the administration of law requires the cooperation not only of the judges, but the administration of justice also required the trained professional, the trained advocates in whose hand the parties of dispute, they can confine their trust and move ahead if there is any litigation. And that is why it is often said that the bench and bar are the two wheels of the chariot. So legal profession plays a very important role and duties toward the state, society, and the public litigant. In a very important judgment in Hansraj L. Chulani versus Bar Council of Maharashtra and Goa, Honorable Supreme Court has observed that legal profession is a partner with the judiciary in the administration of justice. So here in this case, the Honorable Supreme Court accept that the judiciary and the advocates, they are the two sides of same coin. So in society, to create a balance between the administration and between the administration and judiciary, the judges and advocates, they both are play very, very important role. Now, let us begin with the introduction of the Indian Advocate Act 1961. See, Indian Advocate Act 1961 is a central legislation. It is enacted by the Parliament of India and it came into force on 19th May 1961 with the objective to regulate the legal profession in India. So, what was the aim of the act when it was enacted? So, the aim of this act was to create a single class of legal practitioner, namely the advocate, and provide for their enrollment, practice, and regulation in India. So, this Indian Advocate Act, it provides further the establishment of Bar Council of India and then the state and national level bar councils, means the Bar Council of India, and in different state there is a state bar council. These state bar councils and Bar Council of India is very important to maintain the standard and ethics in the legal profession. So for the history of the legal profession in India is concerned, in ancient India, the legal duties were mainly performed by the Brahmins, means the Brahmin scholars, and they interpreted the Dharma Shastra. But there was no organized legal profession like the kings, sabha and learned men. They deliver justice as per their own interpretation of dharma. But in medieval India, especially when the Mughal invade India, then in Mughal rule, the Qazis, the Muftis, they were the people who decide any conflicts, and they play an advisory role. But the concept of the profession of advocate did not exist until the Britishers entered into India. So the foundation of the modern legal profession in India, it were laid down during the British colonial rule in India. Now, initially, the legal representation was restricted to Englishmen in India, and especially in the Supreme Court, which was established under the Regulating Act of 1773. But then over the time, certain laws were enacted to formalize and expand the profession. And then there comes the Legal Practitioners Act 1846. Now this Legal Practitioner Act 1846, it allowed Indians of all caste and religion to become legal practitioner, and it was a very landmark step toward inclusivity. After this, there comes the Legal Practitioner Act of 1879. Now this act tried to consolidate various previous regulations and categorize lawyer as a pleader, vakil, and the attorneys. So, Legal Practitioner Act 1846, it was a landmark step toward the inclusivity. Legal Practitioner Act of 1879, it was tried to consolidate the previous regulations and categorize the lawyers as a pleader, vakils and attorney, and further the Indian Bar Council Act of 1926 come into existence. And this act allow the establishment of bar councils in the High Court. Now this is important, that this act allow the establishment of bar councils in the High Court, but this act also give a limited power to the High Courts. Mainly the powers which were given by the Indian Bar Council Act of 1926, these powers were administrative, or these powers were simply advisory in nature. So it means that the bar councils of the High Court, they did not have a open hand to frame the rules to for the advocates that time. Now, despite this progress, there was no unified legal profession that time. So there was the three categories where you can see on your screen that barristers, they were trained in England and then they enjoyed the higher prestige. Then there were vakils and pleaders, they practices in subordinate courts, and then attorneys were also there, they handle the legal work in the presidency town. So in that way, we can see that there was no unified legal profession. Even among the practicing lawyers, there were the classification. Barristers enjoyed the higher prestige, the vakils, pleader, they practiced in the subordinate courts, and attorneys, they were practicing legal work in the presidency town. So this hierarchy structure led to the professional inequality, and then there is a lack of the professional ethics in the legal profession. So to unify this chaos in the legal profession, after India gained independence in 1947, the legal profession remained fragmented with multiple classes of the vakils, the pleaders, the attorneys and barristers. And this diversity in legal practitioners, it led to the confusion, hierarchy and lack of the uniform professional standard in India. So recognizing the need for uniformity and modernization, the government of India entrusted the Law Commission, the first Law Commission in 1955, to examine the legal profession in India. Now, based on its recommendation, the Advocate Act 1961 was enacted with some objectives. Now, let us see what are the objectives with which the Indian Advocate Act 1961 was enacted. Firstly, this act was enacted to abolish the existing hierarchy. As I already said, that there were the hierarchy of the barristers, the attorneys, and the vakils. Secondly, this the objective of this act was to create a single class of legal practitioner. As the name of this act tells, that this is the Advocate Act of 1961. This act is for the advocates only. Third objective was to establish a self-governing structure. Now, this is important that there should be a self-governing structure. A few minutes back, I mentioned that the Bar Council Act of 1926, the powers which were there with the Bar Council in the High Courts were only advisory and administrative in nature. So the powers were very limited. That's why the objective of the Indian Advocate Act of 1961 was also to establish a self-governing structure through the creation of bar councils and the state bar council. And then the Advocate Act was also enacted to standardize the enrollment, ethical practice and disciplinary control over the advocates. So we can say that this act marked a significant step toward the professionalism and independence of the legal profession in democratic country like India. So the Advocate Act 1961, it consolidate various laws relating to practitioners and create a state bar council and all India bar councils. So after this, let us give a look to what are the salient features of the Advocate Act of 1961. Simply, number one, it unified the legal profession. That means that it abolished the distinct cut. That means it abolished the distinction like the vakil, the barrister, the attorney, the pleaders, and now under Indian Advocate Act 1961, there is only one class of legal practitioner. They are known as the advocate. The second feature is the Indian Advocate Act established the bar councils. So the Bar Council of India, we know the BCI at the national level, and the state bar councils are established at the state levels. Then another salient feature of the Indian Advocate Act is that it regulates the admission and practice. See, if we give a look to section 24 of Indian Advocate Act of 1961, we realize that the section 24 prescribes the qualification for the enrollment as an advocate, and we all know that one should have a degree of the Bachelor of Law to enroll in a state bar council to enter into the practice. And the another salient feature is disciplinary control, which is very, very important in this profession, that the Indian Advocate Act provide a proper mechanism for dealing the misconduct by advocate, and the disciplinary committee is created at both state and BCI level. And then the Indian Advocate Act also provide the professional ethics and standard. What does it mean? It means that the advocate must adhere some code of conduct, the professional ethics. So BCI has a power to frame rules for the professional misconduct under section 49 of the Indian Advocate Act of 1961. Moving ahead, the very important role of the Bar Council of India is to regulate the legal education in India and recognize the law degrees or the enrollment provision in India. So the Advocate Act 1961 also have the provision of promotion of the legal education in India. So the Bar Council of India regulate legal education, coordinate with the universities and set curriculum standards to improvise the legal education in India. It also provides provision for the reciprocity. It also provides provision for the reciprocity. See, the foreign national can be enrolled if their countries allow the Indian to practice law. So this is like a give and take situation. The foreign national can be enrolled if their country allow Indians to practice law. So this is a give and take situations. Then All India Bar Exam AIBE, it is introduced by the Bar Council of India. So the AIBE was not in original act, but it derived by the BCI from its powers, and it sure a minimum standard of legal proficiency, means the one who pass this exam will be eligible to get a practicing license and to be in practice in different courts of India. Then Indian Advocate Act also provide a certificate for enrollment and practice. As I already said, that advocate receive official certificate to validate their right to practice in India, and the certificate of practice is mandatory after AIBE qualifications. Means once the person qualified, he passed the exam of AIBE, only after that the person will get a license or his practicing certificate to get enrolled in the State Bar Council or Bar Council, in the State Bar Council, and initiate his practice in the court. Then there is also the appeal mechanism. So provisions for appeal from the State Bar Council decision to the BCI and then further to the Supreme Court is also there. So anyone who feel aggrieved by any act or the decision of the disciplinary committee in the State Bar Council, so he or she can file an appeal in the Bar Council of India, and if they are not satisfied with the decision of the Bar Council of India, then the person can file an appeal in the Supreme Court of India. Moving ahead, let us see that what is the scheme of the Advocate Act 1961. The Act is divided into 7 chapters, and these 7 chapters contain the 60 sections, and these are organized in the following chapter. Chapter number 1 deal with the preliminaries. Chapter number 2 deal with the Bar Council. So in chapter number 2, the section 3, section 4, section 9, they are the very important section here. Then admission and enrollment of advocate, again section 16 is very important here. Then the right to practice, this is a very important chapter, right to practice and conduct of the advocate. Chapter number 5 is again very important, section 35 to 44 deal with the court's conduct of advocate. Right to practice is there in section 29 to 34. And further, the chapter 6 is miscellaneous, 45, 52 sections deal with this. And then the last chapter we have is temporary and transitional provision, 53, 60. Though being a law student and being an aspiring advocate, the one should give a thorough reading to the Indian Advocate Act of 1961. But the important provisions for our understanding is preliminary, chapter 1, section 1, 2. Then chapter number 2, Bar Council, the State Bar Council, the Bar Council of India, and then what is the process of admission, enrollment of advocates. So chapter number 2, chapter number 3, 4, 5 are important for the reading for any law student or aspiring lawyer. Now moving ahead, what is section 2? So section 2 of Indian Advocate Act 1961, it defines certain terms, like section 2 clause A explain that what is the meaning of advocate. So simple, any advocate entered in any role under the provision of this act is known as the advocate. So further, section 16 will classify the categories of advocate. Section 16, it classifies the category of the advocate that we'll see later when we'll discuss section 16 in our further discussion. Section D, it defined that what is a Bar Council and how it is defined. They said that the Bar Council constituted under this act. So it means that there will be a Bar Council which is constituted under this act, and the Bar Council of India means the Bar Council which is constituted under section 4 of the for the territories to which this act extend. So the Bar Council means the Bar Council which is constituted under this act, and the Bar Council of India means the Bar Council which is constituted under section 4 of the Indian Advocate Act 1961, and this Bar Council of India is extend to the territories which are under cut. So Bar Council of India means the Bar Council constituted under section 4 for the territories to which this act is extend. So law graduate simply means the person who obtained the bachelor degree in law from the university which is recognized in India by the Bar Council, by the Bar Councils. Now the next term which is defined in section 2 clause I is legal practitioner. Who is legal practitioner? It is defined in act. It is advocate of any high court, a pleader, mukhtar or revenue agent. So legal practitioner. Now you can see that there is the word advocate Clause A said advocate entered in any role under the provision of this act. So far the legal practitioner is concerned, it is defined that it means an advocate. So legal practitioner may be an advocate of any high court, or a pleader, mukhtar or revenue agent is also considered as a legal practitioner. State Bar Council is further discussed in detail in section 3 of the Advocate Act. But State Bar Council, they said, means a bar council constituted under section 3 of the Indian Advocate Act. The state roles. Now, state role. What is state role? It means the role of advocate, which is prepared and maintained by the State Bar Council under section 17 of the Advocate Act. So the state role is a role of advocate, means it is a list of the advocates who are enrolled under the State Bar Council. So the state role is important because it creates a record of the advocate who are enrolled under the State Bar Council. Now let us begin with the establishment of the Bar Council of India. Now, when you give a reading to Section 4 of Indian Advocate Act, as I already said, that this is a very, very important provision, Section 4. Section 4 talk about the establishment of Bar Council of India. So, the Bar Council of India is established under Section 4 of the Indian Advocate Act 1961. But this Bar Council is a statutory body. This Bar Council is autonomous body, and it is constituted under Section 4. Now, what this BCI is doing? BCI is actually serving as a apex professional regulatory authority for advocates in India. So this is the topmost professional regulatory authority of advocates in India. And what it is doing? It is overall standardizing. It is overall taking care of. It is overall supervising the legal education across the country in India. All the law schools, they get their affiliation from the Bar Council of India. The Bar Council of India is taking care of the legal education. The Bar Council of India is taking care of the legal curriculum. The Bar Council of India is taking care of what is the course, the syllabi, which the law students are supposed to be read in their professional course, and with the time to time, they update the curriculum for the law students. Now, the BCI was formed with the objective of creating a uniform and centralized authority. We already discussed when we were talking about the historical background of the legal profession. We realized that there were the different provisions, regulations, and there was no uniformity, and there was no centralized authority, and that's why to regulate the legal profession and ensuring the discipline, the ethics, and to provide a quality education, the BCI was formed. So in nutshell, we can say that BCI was formed to create uniformity and to standardize the authority. The BCI was created to regulate the legal education and provide a quality and ethical conduct, and to ensure the discipline in the profession. Now, another important aspect about the BCI is this is a body corporate, and it is having the perpetual succession means and a common seal, and it can sue and be sued. So the three words are important here. This is a body corporate, and it is having perpetual succession, and the BCI is having their own common seal. It can be sued and it be sued. So we can say that it is a body corporate and it operates independently, though its function under the general supervision of the central government for certain regulatory purposes. But otherwise, the BCI, it is operating independently, and BCI is having both administrative and quasi-judicial powers. Now, again, this is a very important aspect of the Bar Council of India, that Bar Council of India is having both administrative as well as the quasi-judicial powers. Now, what is the composition of the Bar Council of India? So here I want to discuss that, what is the structure of Bar Council of India? Who will be the part of Bar Council of India? So according to Section 4 of the Advocate Act 1961, Bar Council of India shall consist of some members. So you can see it is having elected representative from the State Bar Council. So every State Bar Council elected their representative and sent their elected representative to the Bar Council of India. One member is elected by State Bar Council from among its member. See, one member is elected by each State Bar Council. These members are usually senior advocates. Now we have to take care of this, that elected representative from State Bar Council, one member from each State Bar Council. These members, they are usually the senior advocate with high standing experience in the law profession, and then they represent the interest of the legal communities at the national level. So what does it mean? That elected members from State Bar Council, one member from each Bar Council. This member will be the senior advocate and with a very high standing and experience in legal profession. And these members are actually interested to represent the cause and concern of their community to the Bar Council of India. Now, according to Section 4.1, the Bar Council of India shall consist the following members. Now, we are talking about the ex officio members of the Bar Council of India. So, yes, the Attorney General of India, the Solicitor General of India, they are the ex officio members. Who is the Attorney General of India? The highest law officer in the country and the principal legal advisor to the Government of India. So, the principal legal advisor to the Government of India, the highest law officer in the country, is the ex officio member of the Bar Council of India. And Solicitor General of India, the Solicitor General of India is the second highest law officer. Actually, the Solicitor General of India, it is the second highest law officer and it assists the Attorney General in discharging the constitutional and legal duties in his work. Then there is a chairman and vice chairman. So in the composition of Bar Council of India, we realize that there are some elected members from each State Bar Council. They become the member of the Bar Council of India. Now, among those members from the Bar Council of India, they elected one member as a chairman of the Bar Council of India and one as a vice chairman of the Bar Council of India. So it means that the chairman of Bar Council of India is the executive head of the Bar Council of India, and he is presiding over the meetings, taking decisions, and forming the committees, different committees in Bar Council of India. So for the vice chairman of the Bar Council of India is concerned, he is actually assisting the chairman in administrative functions. So he is assisting the chairman into the administrative functions, and sometime in the absence of chairman, he is assisting the administrative functions. Moving ahead, now what is the term of the office of the members of VCI? Now, if a member belongs to the State Bar Council and hold office and hold office as an ex officio member, then the tenure will be 2 years. Now, keep this thing in your mind when you give a reading that the term of office of the member of a Bar Council of India, if this member belongs to the State Bar Council and hold office as an ex officio member, then the tenure will remain the 2 years from the date of his election or until he ceases to be a member of the State Bar Council. So, from the date of his election, there is the two things. The tenure will be 2 years. When? From which date? The date when he is elected, one, or until he ceases to be the member of the State Bar Council. Then second is, for any other member, tenure is the period until he hold office as a member of the State Bar Council. Okay. So any other members means other members, their tenure is until he hold the office as a member of the State Bar Council. So if he remain the elected member of that, he's a State Bar Council, he will be continue his tenure in the Bar Council of India. And then all members are supposed to hold office until their successor elected. So as we already discussed that here, that Bar Council of India, the tenure of the office member is, the tenure will be 2 years from the date of either election or until he ceases to be the member of State Bar Council. Moving ahead, whether the Bar Council members can also be disqualified from the council? So, according to Section 10B of the Act, an elected member will be disqualified on certain grounds. First, if the member is absent from the 3 consecutive meetings of the council without excuse, means he has not informed the bar council or he has not notified any genuine reason of his absence, then this becomes the first ground of his disqualification from the membership of Bar Council of India. Secondly, the name of this person is removed from the role of advocate. So if the name of the advocate is removed from the role of the State Bar Council, yes, automatically the person will be disqualified to be a member of the Bar Council of India. And thirdly, if Bar Council of India disqualified the person under the rules which are framed by the Bar Council of India, if Bar Council of India itself disqualified the person because of the rules they have framed, then the person will automatically disqualify. So after disqualification, we'll discuss that what are the powers of the Bar Council of India. What are the powers of the Bar Council of India? Section 7 is very, very important in discussion of the Bar Council of India, its structure, members, disqualification, and now on the functions. Now, see what are the functions. It's very simple. The Bar Council of India provide standard for professional conduct and etiquettes for advocates, provide procedure for its disciplinary committee and that of each state bar council. It safeguard right, interest, privilege of advocate, and it also support, promote the reformation of law, and it also deal with the disposal of matter arising under the Act. And with this, the Bar Council of India also exercise control and supervision on the state bar councils. It also promote the legal education and provide standard for the same. As I already said, that the law schools, the national law universities, the 5-year integrated law courses, the different law colleges, they all get affiliation from the Bar Council of India, and Bar Council of India is very much strict and concerned to give affiliation to these institutions, and before that they properly supervise and try to assure that actually all the facilities and all the library, the moot court room and all other facilities are there for the to provide a law graduate degree to the student. Only after that the Bar Council of India provide the affiliation to the law schools. So it promote the legal education. It provide the standard for the same to the university and state bar council. Further, another function of BCI is it recognize the universities. I already mentioned providing degree for the qualification and enrollment of an advocate. It visit and inspect universities, conduct seminar, publish journal on legal topics, and it also organize the legal aid just to make the legal aid provided to the last person in the society. The BCI number of time initiate the different legal aid camps, organize seminars, and also initiate the different type of workshops to provide the legal aid to the people who are not in a position to hire an advocate or get or get represented for their cause in the court. Now, the Bar Council of India also recognize foreign qualification for admission as an advocate. It manage and invest funds of BCI, election of member is there, and it constitute funds for providing financial assistance to organize welfare schemes for the indigent, disabled and other advocates, organizing legal aid and establish law libraries. So Bar Council of India, it constitute funds, and through these funds they are contributing in a very novel cause to sometimes to provide the infrastructure of libraries, provide legal aid, provide the funds to the indigent people, the persons who are not in a situation to get help from the advocates. So the BCI, the Bar Council of India, is playing a very important and very genuine role in this aspect also. Further, the Bar Council of India, it also constitute funds, as I already mentioned, and financial assistance to organize the welfare schemes. Now, after this, let us give a look at what are the powers of the Bar Council of India. Section 15 of the Act mention what are the powers of the Bar Council of India. According to Section 15, the Bar Council of India can make rules. So, what rules the BCI can make? For the election of members of the council by secret ballot, along with the conditions imposed to decide who can exercise the right to vote. Then they prepare and revise the electoral rolls and manners of publishing the result, the manner of election of chairman and vice chairman of the bar. So, under Section 15, the Bar Council of India can make certain rules for the election of members, for the preparation of electoral roll, for the manner how the chairman, vice chairman will be elected, and again, it also decide the manner in which the dispute regarding the election of chairman and vice chairman are to be decided. It also filling the casual vacancies in the council, and then the BCI is also having power and duties of the chairman and vice chairman of the council. Then there is the constitution of funds of the council in order to provide the financial assistance of legal aid. So these are the certain powers, and then some more powers are there on your screen, that BCI also organize legal aid, advice for the poor, and constitution of various committees in this regard. The BCI is having power to summon for any committee meeting or conducting any event or any meeting, and they can call the members of the BCI in these meetings. Now the BCI also function of various committees of the councils and their constitution. So qualification for the post of secretary, who is eligible for the post of accountant, who is eligible to handle the other work in the BCI. Each and every aspect are dealt by the Bar Council of India. They have the power to decide the qualification for the post of secretary, for the accountant, and other the official clerk or the employees of the bar. So the Bar Council of India can also make rule regarding maintaining the account book, appointment of the auditor staff of the account, and management of the funds of the council. So these are certain powers which are there given under Section 15 of the Bar Council of India Act 1961 to the BCI. The next important part of this discussion is the State Bar Council under the Act. You see, Chapter 3, it deals with the State Bar Council, and it provides that every state is required to constitute a State Bar Council. It further provides that there is the constitution, tenure, function, and powers of the State Bar Council. Now, let us understand in detail the composition of the State Bar Council of India. If you give a reading to Section 3 of the Indian Advocate Act 1961, it provides the composition of the State Bar Council in India. Now, in case of a Delhi, the State Bar Council will consist of the Additional Solicitor General of India, while other state council will consist the Advocate General. Now, this is a very important question. Sometimes you come across this question in the judiciary exam, in the prelim exam, that in case of a Delhi, the State Bar Council will consist of Additional Solicitor General, while the other states, they will having the Advocate General. See, what is the composition of the State Bar Council? Section 3, subsection 2. A State Bar Council with an electorate of less than 5,000 members. If the members are less than 5,000, it consists 1,500 members. If the State Bar Council is with the electorate of 5,000 to 10,000 members, it is having the 20 members. If the Bar Council is having electorate more than 10,000 members, then more than 10,000 members cut. A State Bar Council with an electorate of 5,000 to 10,000 members must have the 20 members. While a State Bar Council with an electorate of more than 10,000, then there will be 25 members. So it will consist of a chairman and a vice chairman as the Bar Council of India. The State Bar Council is also having the chairman and vice chairman. Now, the important aspect on this slide is that if the electorate is less than, if it is less than 5,000, then 15 members will be there in the State Bar Council. If this is something somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000, then the members will be 20,000. But if it goes above 10,000, then it will consist, the State Bar Council will consist 25 members. And it is also having chairman, vice chairman. Now these members, how these members are elected? We talk about that 5, less than 5, the 10, the 15, then the above 10,000 electorate, the 25 members. How they are elected? These members will be elected by proportional representation through a single transferable vote. And it also provides that half of the elected member must have advocate for at least 10 years, which will include the period during which they were enrolled as an advocate under the Indian Bar Council Act of 1926. Yes, the members who are elected, these half of the elected members have been advocate at least for at least 10 years. So practice for at least 10 year practice is mentioned there. Half of the members it is mentioned. However, section 3 subsection 4 provide that an advocate will be disqualified from elections when, if he does not fulfill the criteria and qualification for the same. So the 3 subsection 4 mentions strictly when a person or advocate will be disqualified if he is not having the qualification and he does not fulfill the criteria to be an advocate. Like BCI, let us understand that what is the term of office of the members of the State Bar Council. Section 8 will deal with the term of office. It is mentioned that tenure of office of member of every State Bar Council will be 5 years. It will be 5 years from the date when the result of election have been published. So once the person, the advocate is elected as a member for the State Bar Council, that advocate will remain the member of the State Bar Council for the next 5 years from the very date when the result is out from the election of the State Bar Council. And then every State Bar Council is under an obligation to conduct election before expiry of the above mentioned term. It means that before the 5-year term comes to an end, before that, the State Bar Council is supposed to organize an election, conduct an election for the State Bar Council. And if they fail to do so, then the period will be extended to 6 months. So just imagine that, the tenure of the elected member of State Bar Council, it comes to an end on, let it be on 30th of June 2025, but the election was not conducted by the State Bar Council before the 30th of June. Then for next 6 months, it means that till 31st of December 2025, the period will be extended. So this period will be extended to 31st of December 2025. But it means that within this time period, the State Bar Council is supposed to be conduct an election. Now section 5, it further provided every council is a corporate body. We also discuss that Bar Council of India is a corporate body and it is having the perpetual succession, the common seal, along with the powers to acquire and hold a movable, immovable property, and to sue and to be sued. So like BCI, the State Bar Council is also a corporate body and is having a perpetual succession, is having its own seal, is having its own movable, immovable property, and it can also be sued and to be sued in its own name. Now section 6 of the Act provide the functions of the State Bar Council. So for the functions of the State Bar Council is concerned, the State Bar Council admit the advocate on roll. The State Bar Council maintain the State Bar Council prepare and maintain the roll. The State Bar Council decide the cases of the professional misconduct. The State Bar Council is helping to promote the State Bar Council helping in the in the growth of the bar association. The State Bar Council is taking care of the welfare of the advocates on roll, and the State Bar Council is taking the good care of the right and interest of the advocate. The State Bar Council is trying to support and promote the reformation of law. The State Bar Council is also conducting the seminar and organized talk on the legal topics by famous and eminent jurists and published paper and journals in the legal area. See, this is very important because conducting seminar and organizing a talk is very, very important. For example, recently the India enacted the BNSS, and 2023. So sometimes it is really helpful to organize the talks or seminars to make the advocates update their knowledge and understanding on the recent development in the law. Now the State Bar Council is also providing the legal aid, organizing a legal aid, manage and invest the fund of the council, and it also organizes the legal aid for the poor people. Further, the conducting elections of the member is also a very important function of the State Bar Council of India. State Bar Council is also organizing funds for providing the financial assistance for the welfare programs for indigent, disabled persons, and in that way it is trying to provide a legal aid and establish the law libraries in the different bars, in the district bars or in the State Bar Councils or in the different areas where it is required. So State Bar Council can also receive gift, donation, grants, and all these are credit to their appropriate funds. Now coming further, what are the powers of the State Bar Council? If you give a look to section 24, when you give a reading to section 24 of the Indian Advocate Act of 1961, there we realize that the section 24 has given the power to admit advocate on a state roll. So the State Bar Council admit the advocate on record, on roll, as per the provision of section 24 of the Advocate Act of 1961. And what is the conditions? What are the rules? So the State Bar Council also lay down some rules to be admitted as an advocate on the state roll. So a person shall be deemed to be qualified to be admitted as an advocate and in the state roll if he is a citizen of India. Second, if he has completed the age of 21. Third, if he has completed the degree of the law. So citizen of India is having the 21 years of age, has completed the LLB degree. If the person fulfill all these conditions for admission as an advocate, then the Bar Council of India may enroll that person as an advocate. Okay. Now further, the power of State Bar Council is power to maintain the role of advocate. Yes, this is important to maintain and update the role of the advocate. So section 17 of the Advocate Act 1961 give this power to the State Bar Council that every State Bar Council shall prepare and maintain the role of the advocate, in which shall be entered the name and address of all persons who are admitted to be an advocate on the role of the State Bar Council. So this is again the important power of the State Bar Council. Then power to appoint committee, again section 10 subsection 1 of the Act, it provides that a State Bar Council shall constitute the following standing committees. The first is Executive Committee. It is consisting 5 members elected by the Council from amongst its member. Then there will be the Enrollment Committee. It consists of the 3 members elected by the Council amongst its member. Section 10 subsection 3 of the Act further make it clear that State Bar Council of any state may constitute from amongst its member such other committees as it think necessary for the purpose of carrying out the provision of the Advocate Act. I mean, if the State Bar Council feel like this, that they have to be constitute another committee, yes, they can do that. Further, the State Bar Council is having power to punish for professional or other misconduct. So the State Bar Council has this power. You can see section 35, section 36B of the Indian Advocate Act of 1961. So for example, if an advocate, he come before the committee that another advocate is having committed a professional misconduct against it, then this is the responsibility of the committee to look into the matter and decide the matter on the professional misconduct. Then there is the rule making power. the State Bar Council has been empowered to make rules to carry out the purpose of the section 16 to 27 of the Advocate Act dealing with the admission and enrollment of the enrollment of advocates. It means that section 20 to 27 of Advocate Act give the rule making power to the State Bar Council, that they have a power to make rule for the enrollment of the advocate, to maintain the record of the advocate, or to decide the matters of the professional conduct, the ethics. All these rules are prepared by the State Bar Council, and these rules are prepared for the purposes. Now, what are the purposes? For that, you need to go through in detail section 16 to section 27 of Indian Advocate Act. Then section 28 subsection 3 of the act make it clear that now these rules of mail shall not have effect unless they have been approved by the Bar Council of India. So if the State Bar Council has prepared some rules, these rules, they get the prior approval from the Bar Council of India, and only after that they will become the rules in that State Bar Council. So the last part of discussion in this lecture is the constitution of the committees. See, the act also provide for the constitution of various committees in order to perform specific function and fulfill the purpose. So the Bar Council of India and the State Bar Council of the State Bar Council, they are having the various committees which are responsible to perform the different function to governing the functioning of the advocates and to provide the uniformity in the functions of the legal profession in India. Now, the first committee is the special committee. This committee is to be constituted by the Bar Council according to section 8A of the Act. If the State Bar Council fails to conduct election of its member before the expiry of the term, the committee will consist of ex officio member of the State Bar Council if there is more than one such member, and the senior member will be the part of the committee and with the chairman. So a special committee is constituted by the Bar Council to section 8. So if the Bar Council failed to conduct an election of its member before the expiry of its term, then the special committee will which consists the ex officio member of the State Bar Council, and there may be one more than one such member in the committee, then they will try to see the matter, and then the two members in this committee is also nominated by the Bar Council of India. All the properties and assets of the State Bar Council will vest with the committee upon its constitution, along with all the rights, liabilities and obligations. So the committee has all the rights, the liabilities and obligations regarding the property, the assets of the State Bar Council. So any disciplinary matter any disciplinary matter or proceeding will be transferred to the committee. So the special committee is supposed to be conduct election in the state within the 6 months of the time period. But if it cannot do so, then the Bar Council of India extend the time period for the reasons stated in writing. Then they will extend the time period for this thing. Now, the constitution of the committee, the next is the disciplinary committee. Now, this is a very important committee so far the State Bar Council is concerned. The Bar Council has been empowered to under this act to constitute one or more disciplinary committee under section 9. This is important. That's why I said in the beginning of the lecture that section 3, section 4, section 6, section 9, these all are very important sections. Section 9 said that the committee will consist of 3 people, whom 2 will be elected, other co-opted by the council, and purpose of the committee is to deal with any complaint regarding the misconduct against the advocates. So disciplinary committee is responsible to see the matters of the professional misconduct among the lawyers, and the committee is trying to deal with all the complaints regarding the misconduct. Then there is a legal aid committee. Section 9A of the Indian Advocate Act 1961 discuss about the legal aid committee. Now this committee is having minimum the 5 members and maximum the 9 members. The committee is responsible to provide the legal aid to the people who are actually in need. So this is a very important committee which provide the help, or which provide the help to the poor and needy people in society. Then there is the other committees. Now, what is this other committee? Section 10 of the Advocate Act deal with the constitution of other committee, and then the other committees are the Executive Committee, the Legal Education Committee. So the Executive Committee is having 9 members. They are elected by the council. The Legal Education Committee is having the 10 members. So the section 10 also provides that State Bar Council can also constitute the Executive Committee and the Enrollment Committee. So Executive Committee, you can see on your screen that Executive Committee is 5 members elected by the council. Enrollment Committee is 3 members, and these 3 members are elected by the council. So with this, we can conclude that in this first lecture on the Advocate Act 1961, we understand the background of the legal profession in India. We talk about that how the legal profession before India attained independence in 1947 and we enacted the Indian Advocate Act 1961, the legal profession was scattered. And finally, when in the Advocate Act 1961, it was enacted, then how the law profession was unified in India. And now we have only one legal practitioners firm, that is the advocates. And then we also discuss about the Bar Council of India, what is the structure of Bar Council of India, what is the functions of Bar Council of India, what are the powers of Bar Council of India, and under section 3, section 4, section 6, section 9, the different provisions, the different aspects, the powers, the functions, the structures, and also the salient features of the Advocate Act we have discussed in this lecture. And I hope that all of you get the benefit from this discussion. So whenever we discuss the Advocate Act with this lecture, we need to give a thorough reading to the provision of the Indian Advocate Act. So please give a thorough reading to the Act and then see that how the section 3, section 4, section 6, section 9, they are important and contributing a lot to the understanding of the profession, the legal profession in India, and how the Advocate Act 1961, it helped to understand the profession, conduct, and the ethics of the legal profession in India. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to this piece of literary snippet. We usually know William Shakespeare as the most revered figure in the history of English literature. But we often tend to forget that he has also been one of the most hated figures in literature. And here I'm not talking only about those boys and girls who have to memorize long sections from Macbeth or King Lear or Julius Caesar before they can go and sit for their school or college exams. But I'm also talking about people who are themselves quite famous authors. Tolstoy, for instance, considered the writings of Shakespeare to be, and I quote, crude, immoral, vulgar, and senseless. George Bernard Shaw absolutely loathed Shakespeare, as he did Homer. But perhaps no other criticism about Shakespeare is more damaging than the one which says that Shakespeare is a marvelous storyteller, provided someone has told him the story earlier. Now, this piece of criticism is particularly damaging because it is true. None of Shakespeare's plays contain any original story whatsoever. They are all written using pre-existing materials, pre-existing stories. Now, does that diminish the stature of Shakespeare as a dramatist? Well, I'll leave that for you to decide. See you in the next episode of literary snippets.